Hey guys, welcome to Sponte Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Harper, and today with me is Otis McGregor from Tribe and Purpose. Otis McGregor was in the military for 25 years. He served 17 years in Special Forces. He retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2009. Otis, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Pleasure and honor to be here with you.
Yeah, so Otis, we like to give guys just an example of what guys are doing beyond their military service. So one of the ways we do that is we took some parts of the third stanza of the Ranger Creed, and we just like to see, what are guys doing to stay mentally alert beyond their military service.
Yeah, mental alertness, man. It's about self-maintenance, mindfulness, self-awareness. I used to think that was all woo-woo bullshit. Uh, we PG here. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you that. I'm guessing it's a Ranger.
No, I mean we're not. We always say it's not for kids, so it's
Okay, cool.
we figure the community we're gonna get, so that's fine.
Yep, I kind of figured that. Should have asked before I said it. Anyway, uh, yeah, I think that is a huge thing. And I used to be a badass Green Beret, and I thought that was all woo woo stuff. This mindfulness, meditations, and all those sort of things. And it's not, and it's not because you got to think about it in the right way. I look at mindfulness as being more in control of who I am and how I want to show up, how I want to make decisions, how I want to be in front of people, how I want to show up for my wife, my family, my friends. And meditation, just to kind of stay in that realm, meditation is not this woo woo, fingers, together in a squatting position on pillows with chanting and all that sort of stuff. Although that's a technique, what it's about is training your mind. It's training your mind to be able to focus. And when you think about it in that way, you train your mind to focus. That is a powerful place to be because now I'm in control. Now I understand how the decisions I make and what the decisions I make and why I make them and how I stay focused. When I need to focus, I focus because I've trained my mind to do that even better than when I was in. And the other piece I'll share with you about keeping that together is we have to we are people, we are men of routine. The military puts us in a routine, and that's why we're successful in the military. When you step out of the military, nothing is ever linear or routine unless you make it linear or routine. And being creating a routine for yourself is the key to success. I get up without an alarm at 4 o'clock every morning, and I go down to my gym with my broke ass back, and I get on my bike and I work out because I know I need to do that routine. And I do my workout and I come upstairs and I do my devotional, I do some reading, I check my schedule for the day, I go get cleaned up, I have breakfast with Miss Suzanne, and then I step into my day. And it's a routine because that's the way my body functions, my mind functions, and that's what the military has shaped us to be. And when you take the uniform off, that's no longer there. There's no training schedule, there's nobody driving it. So unless you take charge of it, there is no routine and you will be lost and you'll feel that gap in yourself. That's what I do. I've created a routine for myself. Miss Suzanne and I will shut it down around 1900 ish, sometimes earlier. Sometimes we'll grab dinner earlier than because she has a business that she's running to, and we'll step back into the business realm and we'll close a couple of things out. But usually, I mean, it's pretty rare that I'm doing something past 1900, and then I've got a bedtime routine. I'm shutting it down around 9:30, and I'm reading a book. And I give a shout out to my buddy JC Glick, Ranger Glick. Ranger Glick.
Yeah, we just had him on a couple weeks ago.
Oh, did you? Well,
Yeah.
Ranger Glick got me reading. I've never read Last of the Mohicans. I've seen the movie. It's a deployment movie. Seen it I don't know how many times. I'm reading the old version of it, and man, it's almost the wrong book to read for bedtime because man, it's like, damn, that's badass. You start reading that, getting that your mind thinking about going on patrols back in those days. Yeah, so Ranger Glick turned me on to that book a few weeks ago. So I give a shout out to him on reading that, and I'll give a shout out to the organization that he and I are a part of, uh, the Commit Foundation. He's the CEO, and I'm one of the coaches that helps guys get out of uniform and live a successful life, create their next adventure in life. And that's, I'm hugely passionate about that. And that's what's helped me understand, because not only have I lived it, but I'm helping other people living it. 200 plus guys I've helped make that adjustment over the years. So yeah, I've seen it, man, and that going all circle and bring us back around, because I'll run off and chase a rabbit, man, if you don't stop me. But bringing it back to that solution, the question that you asked, how do I keep myself mentally sharp? Is that routine, the mindfulness, the meditation, the reading, and yeah,
So
having
what changed for you? Like, why was it a woo woo, like a weird mystic thing? And then was it SF stuff, or what did you stumble upon that was like, I need to be more mentally thinking through what I'm doing on a daily basis?
I started to when I started to get clarity in my purpose. So when I retired, I had, it wasn't bad, but bad is relative, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's experiences are different, and how you perceive them is whether or not you decide whether or not it's bad. I decided that my transition was bad because I was lost. I had no idea. I had no purpose. My whole thought process when I retired in 2009 was to get a job. And that was all I cared about, was a job. And I felt like I had to have a job because that's who I was. I needed a job. I needed a paycheck. And that set me on a path for what I refer to as wandering the job desert. And I chased after money and paychecks for 7 years, worked for 5 different companies. In between working for companies, I consulted doing the same damn thing I was doing for those companies. And I didn't know what was wrong, except that I wasn't happy. And every one of those companies, they're all great companies. I have nothing bad about any company I worked for. And each one of them, though, at about the 90-day mark, I started to get this feeling of crap in my gut, this pit in my stomach. And I went from this woohoo excitement sort of world of, man, this is awesome. This is what I'm going to do for the next 20 years until I retire and all that, to at the 90-day mark, things just started changing. The coffee didn't taste good anymore. Free coffee. It was like, damn, this shitty ass coffee. The guy down the hall made too much noise typing on his keyboard, or I was going to say, or he talked too loud on the phone, but that was always me. I talked too loud on the phone. The culture started to just eat at me, and the boss that I worked for, I was like, God, this guy, I don't know, man, what's wrong with him? This is stupid. All these sort of things. And then I'd quit. And then I'd chase after the next job. And then I'd do the same thing. And I went through this cycle with 5 major companies, big companies out there. I mean, great companies. And I'd go through the same process. And it wasn't until the last company I worked for that I finally had a revelation. I mean, I had the perfect job for me too. I was a chief strategy officer for a small business. I couldn't have written that script any better. And I got just as frustrated and miserable in that job as I had in every other job. And it was, ironically, it was what I was volunteering at that was turned out to be my guiding path. And that was boys high school rugby. I was a boys high school rugby coach. And it was a game I'd never played, a sport didn't know anything about, truthfully, when I started coaching. Became a student of the game, fell in love with the game, still love the game, fell in love with the boys. They were like second sons for Miss Suzanne and I coming in and out of our house because our house was the clubhouse. And I realized that those two things were great, but what was really driving me was being their coach, was being the head coach of the team. Not the fact that I was the head coach, but being their coach, teaching, mentoring, guiding them, helping them achieve what they say they wanted to achieve, pushing them to do more than they thought they could. And
Hey, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. So, Otis, we were talking about what changed in your mind for that, thinking about mentally alert being this woohoo out of the box, not really relevant thing, to you actually believing that being mentally alert was something necessary.
yeah, I think it was, I did all that stuff after retiring that never filled me up, never helped me understand who I was, pursuing the paycheck, chasing the next job, chasing the next promotion. And none of them ever helped me feel who I was, understand who I am, I guess I should say. And it took a moment of feeling sorry for myself, wondering what the hell was wrong with me. You know, all my buddies, you know the deal. You see it on the social medias. Everybody's happy and they got these great jobs. They're driving the cool new truck and they're buying the hunt camp and all these sort of things, right? And I'm sitting over going, man, this sucks. This sucks. What's wrong with me? And in that moment, that summer afternoon, uh, sitting here in my home office feeling sorry for myself, I started to think, well, what had I been doing since leaving the army? And when I thought about it, I realized that since leaving the army, only two things have been consistent: my family. I'm consider myself fortunate. I've put in a little bit of work towards it, but I consider myself fortunate. I'm still married to my beautiful Texas bride. Uh, And so family is consistent and important to me. And then number two was boys high school rugby. That summer afternoon when I started feeling had this moment of desperation feeling, uh, I realized that that was what was driving me every day to go to work because I would go to work early so that I could knock out my 8 hours and get to practice by 3:30 in the afternoon. And I had turned down jobs over the years that wouldn't have afforded me the flexibility to do that. And that afternoon, as I sat here thinking about that, well, why was I spending so much time in a game I had never played, in a game I knew nothing about when I started coaching it? And I took that and I started to think about it, and I said, "Man, well, let me break it down. Let me break this boys' high school rugby thing down into parts that I can manage." And I took it and I said, "Well, the game of rugby. Now that I know it and understand it, because I didn't before when I started. Now that I know it and understand it, it excites me. I find it an awesome game." Number two was the boys as a club sport, and as the head coach, our house became the clubhouse. And then number three was what I found out was what was really fueling me, and that was being their coach, teaching, mentoring, guiding them, pushing them to do what they said they wanted to do, helping them achieve what they wanted to achieve. And that was the fuel that was keeping me going. That's what was exciting me to keep me busy and driving me forward in the jobs that I didn't like and showing up for practice and staying up late and studying the game. And when I started to think about that a bit more, it was as much as I love the boys and as much as I love the game, I started to think about, well, it's really this coaching thing. And I started to talk to a couple of my friends in my inner circle about this coaching thing. And I got introduced to this whole executive coaching, leadership coaching thing that I'd never heard of. I only knew about life coaches. And all the life coaches I knew were either Tony Robbins or these close talkers, kind of the dead fish handshake sort of guys that you just kind of you kept trying to move away and they kept getting closer in your face. And when I learned about this thing, that's when I said, that's what I need to do. And that's when I got clarity in my purpose. That's when understood that my purpose is to create a legacy of leaders, because I believe, and now Tribe and Purpose believes, that creating great leaders in your organization, having great leaders in your organization, makes your organizations better. And when we have better organizations in our communities, we have better communities, and we have better communities around the world. We'll have a better world. That's what freaking drives me every day. It gets me up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go work out, so my back doesn't hurt as bad, so that I can stay focused and help people. And as I started to understand that more, I started to realize that there was more to it than that. That I had to understand how to control my mind, how to think, how to make decisions, how to take a pause when I got pissed off, how to know that if I'm pissed off, it's a decision. If I'm sad, feeling sorry for myself, it's a decision that I get to choose. And that's how I started to shift from this being this woo woo flower child sort of thing, uh, tambourines and all that sort of stuff from the 60s, to realize that I was actually putting myself more in control. I was being a better leader for myself by doing that. And that's what we all want, right? Every one of us in the military, we want to be better leaders. And the best way to be a better leader is to lead yourself better. And that's when I started to realize that these things that I used to think were woo woo, are actually giving me the skills to lead myself better so I could lead others better.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think about that a lot, especially since I've left the military, because when you're in the military, your purpose and that mental stuff is pretty much thought out for you. It's just there, here's the command, now you need to go execute. So you don't really think about it. But then when you get out of the military, you got to figure out what you want to do. And that can be very hard. And I think about it like freedom. Freedom, it's actually harder to have like freedom than it is to live in like a communist regime where they just tell you what you do and that's what you get. Because at the end of the day, that's all you get, and you don't have to be mentally prepared for that. But with freedom, you actually have to make the choice: is this the best thing or is this subpar? And and depending on which way you go, that can reflect on you differently and have an effect on you. So I've read several of your articles, and a lot of them all come back to the basis of we need to plan. We need to know what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm a lifelong learner and a planner. And if you're not in control of what you do when you do it, then you feel lost. In the military, we're not, right? In the army, we're being told, do this, do this. Here's the time to show up for PT at this time in this uniform. And we joke about that, and everybody thinks, well, you're mentally structured. You can't make open decisions. And it couldn't be any more wrong. Because of those structures, those routines, it allows us to have more free thought. That's the irony of it. In the military, you're structured and you have a very tight window of structure. But because we have that tight window of structure, guess what? Our mind has the freedom, because now our mind doesn't have to say, well, what should I wear to work out today? What time do I want to go work out? And all that sort of crazy stuff that so many people who struggle to succeed in life deal with, because they don't, back to the routine, they don't set a routine. The routine allows us to take those decisions that we shouldn't have to make because they're easy to make. What am I wearing to work out? Well, I'm wearing the same damn thing I wore yesterday morning. I'm just what I'm going to work out in until it stinks too bad that I can't put it on, or Miss Suzanne grabs it because it's stinking up the bathroom. Right? It's that sort of thing, because I don't need to make that decision. What time am I going to work out? Hell, I know what time I'm going to work out. I'm going to work out at 04 in the morning because I've set this routine. And that routine allows my mind to focus on other things, those tougher decisions, which are more important. That's what's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the military. That's what people who've never been in the military will not understand. I will explain it. I've been on podiums, I've been on stages, and I've said this, and they don't grasp it because only those of us who have been in that world, in the Ranger Regiment and SF, where they think that we're lockstep thinkers. But what we are is we're masters of the routine so that our mind can solve complex problems that aren't dealing with, well, what color socks should I wear with my PT uniform? Am I wearing black or green? I can't remember. What's the regulate? All those stupid stuff that people that don't understand how important a routine is don't get. Routine allows you to focus on what's important and not waste what precious mental time we have, mental acuity, mental capacity on stupid, easy things. What am I having for lunch? I'll tell you what I'm having for lunch. I'm having a tortilla with 2 slices of ham with cheese that I put in the toaster oven and I hit toast until it gets hot and then I eat it. Damn. Because you know what I'm doing? I'm thinking about the next thing. I'm fueling my mind because I've got a routine in, and I'm fueling my mind to think about the next thing, that hard, complex thing, that client call, that sales call, that strategy that we're doing next, we're building for the next year. That's that's where you should be spending your time and thinking. And I'll say one other thing, and I touched on this intentionality. When you are not intentional in what you do, you are not in control, you are a lost sheep. And a lost sheep dies because it's not with the herd, it's not with the shepherd. When you know what you're going to do, you're not even a sheep anymore. You're in charge. You're the shepherd. You're the one who's taking charge and driving forward with who you want to be and what you want to be in life. When you have a plan, you know what your purpose is. Your purpose is your overarching umbrella of who you are in your life. It's the fuel that gets you going. It's the cup that's never full and never empty. You can always put more in it. You fulfill your purpose. You don't complete your purpose. You don't achieve your purpose. You fulfill it. And because I understand what my purpose is, I can create a vision and I can achieve my vision. And the way I achieve my vision is I create a plan. And that plan tells me this is what you need to do. This is Otis, that's your vision and that supports fulfilling your purpose. Here's the action steps. I've got goals, I've got objectives, I've got tasks, I've got what the fuck are you doing this afternoon to achieve your vision? That's the power of a plan. And that's when you do that, that's the secret to life. It's the secret to happiness, leading yourself to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's good. So you said before you wake up at 04 and then you PT. So what do you do nowadays to stay physically fit? What do you, how do you plan around that? You know, do you different stuff? We talked to JC a couple weeks ago. You know, he does German volume training and a bunch of other things. So what's that look like for you?
It's changing. I've hit a season in life. I've been doing PT in some form or fashion. You know, I started lifting weights when I was in high school to play football. I started doing an Army PT when I enlisted and in college. I've been doing it that way my whole life. And I've hit a point where the back, the neck, and a couple of the other joints, don't want to list them all out. I don't think we got enough time tonight to list out all those problems. They ain't working right anymore. So I'm changing. I'm changing how I do PT, and I'm shifting more into the yoga type of PT, where I'm focused on the breathing, the stretching, the changing the positions and the balance, still staying physically fit in the core and the body weight, and doing those things because all that other stuff I've been doing for 50 years, I guess not really total 50 years, 40 plus years, 40 plus years that I've been doing all those things. It's time to change so I can continue to do the things that I love to do. Now, I'll tell you one other thing I've thrown in there in this, because it's kind of a catchy, cool thing to do is I started doing cold plunge. And I got a water tank out in the garage that I throw ice in, and I try to get in there a couple of times, probably 3 or 4 times a week, not a month, a week. And I've noticed that that helps with my back pain, just doing little things like that. I started off, a friend of mine, thank God she did. I appreciate her for doing this. She said, "Hey, before you go out and spend all that money and doing all that stuff, why don't you just see if you like doing it?" So I listened because I'm not the smartest person in the room. I listened to her, and I threw ice. Well, I we have a well. We live on a well, so the water comes out of the faucet at 52 degrees. So I just filled the bathtub up and did that a few times. I'm like, damn, this works pretty good, but I don't fit in the bathtub. So got a water tank, stock tank, uh, put that in the garage and add ice to it. And now I jump in and just hang out there for about 10 minutes or so every day. Yeah, I don't want to say every day, 3 or 4 times a week. And that shit works. Between that and the yoga, my I'm mitigating the pain, which is essential because pain is a distractor. We can push through it and play with it and mentally put it in its place. Particularly, what the hell is it called? Enduring pain, whatever that's called. I'm drawing a blank on the word. Uh,
Suffering.
no, the pain that just doesn't go away. You get it for good, sort of thing. There's a word for that, but anyway, somebody will write in and tell us later on. Uh, it's it's a mental game, back to the mind again, because we can start to train our mind that pain is not truly a pain. It's a legacy. It's there from an injury that's no longer there, you know, and start to control our mind again, be back in control, because that pain is not something that is true, because the pain is good because it's telling you something's wrong. But when there's nothing wrong anymore and you're still having pain, you start to train your mind to take care of it, back to the mind and controlling, making the decisions and how you show up. That's what we have to do. We have to be in control, back to that intentionality of what you're going to do. That's how I stay fit. I mean, if you really want to know exactly what I mean, I ride a bike. I got a spin bike. I get on my spin bike. I turn on some hard ass rock. Uh, get the mind going and ride my spin bike for 20 minutes, and then I get down on the floor and do my core strength and my yoga stretches and things like that, just to keep things in control. Because you know, God damn it, I hunt elk in the fall, and I'm going to continue to hunt elk in the fall, and that requires me going up above 10,000 feet with a 30-pound rucksack. 30 pounds ain't shit, but a 30-pound rucksack before I kill the elk. Then I got to
And
kill the elk,
quarters.
and I got to carry it down 120, 150-pound rucksack out of the mountains, right?
Yeah.
So, goddamn, that's one of the reasons I do that. And I'll tell you another reason, because I want to get down on the floor and wrestle with my grandsons, my grandkids as they grow up, right? Yeah.
Well, and what you were talking about with pain, it kind of reminds me with that quote you had in your article about fear. That quote from Seneca, it says, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from the imagination than from reality." And that kind of goes back to planning. If we don't have a plan in place, then we can worry about things, we can fear them, or we can create problems that aren't necessarily truly there.
Yeah. Our caveman instinct is to fear the unknown. Um, and fear of the unknown means you don't have a plan. And the reason we plan, the reason that, go back to all of our training in the military. The reason you train is because your mind switches to what you need to do. You do all that training, and then you get a plan, and the plan says, here's what you need to do in order to achieve this outcome. And we understand the outcome. We know the end state. We know the intent. We have clarity, and we know that's what's going to drive us to complete. It's the same thing in life. When we know what we need to do, we know what our vision is, we know who we want to be. Those things is what drives us, and it keeps us from being afraid. Fear of the unknown will stop you from taking action.
Yeah.
Even if it's something brand new, that you've never done, we can overcome that by visualizing it. That's what we did, right? Remember your first jump?
Yeah.
But we led up to that with with 2+ weeks of other stuff to get to that first jump, but it was still scary because you
Yeah.
still didn't know what was going to happen. But we mitigated that fear through all that preparation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
What do you do on a daily basis to work on like staying morally straight? Like, what do you use for that?
Each morning after I finish my workout, I got a daily Bible devotional that I've been carrying around for, gosh, I don't know how long. I think I'm at least my fourth or fifth time through this one. Uh, Reads a verse, and it's got a little one-page devotional. That is a key piece to it, and understanding, again, back to the purpose and my values, what's important to me, uh, because those things. Oh, and I'll throw in one other thing I do, and I'll read a stoic quote or two sometimes, depending on the mood I'm in. I'll flip through two or three of them on my phone, and it's just those things that help remind you that, hey, it ain't all that bad. Damn, it's pretty damn good, actually.
Yeah, I think it's interesting doing like a Bible study like that and how often you find it hitting you in the place you're at. I don't know if you have that feeling, but like that understanding of like you're struggling with something and then you read a verse on it and gives you a little bit more clarity about like not being anxious or something. And I just feel like that's one thing that's helpful for me. So it sounds like you have kind of a similarity in that.
Yeah, and I'll share something else about that I find profound. And it's that you could read the same thing, and the Bible falls into this category, but other books do too. Uh, you can read the same thing over and over again, and then one day, all of a sudden, bam! Holy shit! Look at that! And it reminds me of a Stoic quote by I think the Heraclitus is the was the Stoic that said this, is that no man can step in the same river twice, because he is no longer the same man, and it is no longer the same river. And when you think about that, one more, and I think this one's more Confucius than anything, is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So when you think about those two things, and you read Bible verses, you read a book, you read Marcus Aurelius Meditations, Seneca's letters, whatever it is, one of I can see Seth Godin's book behind me on the shelf right over there. That orange one right there is one of Seth Godin's books. And if I was to pick that up and read it now, I read it about 4 or 5 months ago. I bet you I get a different thing out of it because I'm a different person. The words are the same, just like the Bible. The words are the same, but I'm a different person. And because I'm a different person, I'm in a different place. Those words appear differently. And that's what it is. It made me think of, it's like sitting at church Monday morning, sitting at church Sunday morning, and the preacher saying, giving a sermon, and you're like, oh, That's me. And then next week you're like, yeah, I didn't do anything for me. Right? I mean, but you know what? Maybe you go back and watch the recording of that sermon in 6 months and you may be like, oh, because we change.
Yeah. What are some struggles you've had since you retired from the military? And like what did you learn from them?
Yeah, the biggest struggle was uh, accountability of the people that worked for me. Uh, in the special ops world, we've got the best of the best that we work with and for. And the way here's the way I describe it. People ask me, well, what was it like being on an ODA? I say, well, here's what it's like. Monday morning, I have a team meeting. And during that team meeting, I say, hey guys, by Friday, I need 3 bags of blue powder. And my engineer will say, Roger that, sir. I got it. No problem. Wednesday afternoon, he comes to me and says, hey, boss, I've got 2 of those bags you're looking for. Got them already. Man, number 3 is getting tough. But I tell you what, I'll tell you tomorrow by noon status of bag number 3. I said, Roger that. Thanks, engineer. And he goes off Thursday morning, says, hey, boss, got number 3. Friday afternoon, I've got 5 bags. You notice what happened in that whole sequence as a leader. What did I do? I said, I gave a time and I gave an end state. I probably would have said some why too, really, but to simplify this. And then somebody took charge. Somebody led, stood up and said, I got this. They led to solve the problem. And then, without me asking, came back and said, hey, boss, here's my status. Hey, boss, having some trouble. Hey, boss, made some more progress. Hey, boss, I exceeded the standard. And not in a bragging way, but that's just the way it was. That that right there has been the hardest thing for me to recover from outside the special ops community, because I have to say, hey, Joe, you're in charge. And then go check on Joe. Joe, how's it going? Oh, okay. You're having some troubles. Okay. All right. Well, Joe, let me know if you need help. And then go back. Hey, Joe, do you need any help? Oh, no, boss. I got this. I got this. And Friday afternoon, I find out that Joe's only got me 2 bags of blue powder,
If that.
if that, because, he got pulled off for something else. He got told somebody else he had to do. Not once did Joe come back and tell me and check in with me. That right there has been the biggest leadership lesson that I think I've learned, you know, in my entire life is that is you have you have to understand the environment that you're in, the culture that you're in. And when you're in an organization, an environment of high performers, call them alphas, whatever you want to call them, but they're high performers, people that always, always, always do their best and exceed what their best is. And then you step away from that to average man is average, right? Not to say there's not some great performers that I've had work for me since the army, but there's also a lot of people that I got to go, hey, dude, did you get that done? What's the status of that? You know, do I need to? I have to tell them, hey, give me a status, man. Don't wait until the end. Don't don't just show up on at the deadline and say, sorry, couldn't do it, boss. What kind of shit is that, right?
Yeah, I think that's one common theme that I hear from Rangers, and I would probably hear it from SF guys if we talk to them more. But that accountability, that lack of communication, that lack of care The Ranger Creed says 100% and then some. It doesn't say 80% and it's Friday and I'm busy and we're punching out. It says get the job done at all costs. And so that is a very big struggle that, it doesn't matter. Just military people in general struggle with in the civilian world. I got one really good friend that he struggles with that a lot. He works for a big federal company and he's often running into that wall.
Yeah. Well, here's what I tell guys. Every guy that's served at least a full enlistment. So let's say a 4-year enlistment, because after 4 years, especially if it's like right out of high school, you get some things ingrained into your soul. And those things, those processes are all you need to be successful. What you have to learn, the biggest skill that we all have to apply, is how do I adapt those skills to the situation and environment I'm in? We all know how to do it. I know in SF we do because that was our job, right? I,
Yeah.
was to drop into, you name the country, figure out the culture if I hadn't already been studying it, figure out the culture and the language and get my point across in their culture and language. It ain't no different than when you take the uniform off. I know how to plan. I know how to execute. I know how to lead, and I know how to communicate. I just have to modify it to the culture and environment I'm in. I'll give you here's a data point for you. Right after I retired, I was hired by Fairleigh Dickinson University to teach a master's level course called Planning and Program Development. That course, I was hired to do that course, and they sent me this little book, probably 200 pages long. Say, here's all you need. I'm like, there's no POI, there's nothing. I'm like, nope, that's it. I'm like, all right. So I created my own POI. And you know what my POI was? MDMP, military decision making process, that I translated to civilian business speak. And I taught that class for 2 years. And I got great replies and reviews from my students. They all loved, they were fascinated by this process and they couldn't believe it. And it was so simple and so easy. Yeah, no shit. Because we send people to die using that planning method. I think it's pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all you got to do is translate it. I've helped veterans who are entrepreneurs in the startup world, and they go, "Man, I got to write this business plan. I just struggling with this, how the structure of it, and I don't understand it. God, I'm spending hours trying to figure out what's the right layout on a business plan I should do." And I said, 5-paragraph field order there, Ranger. 5-paragraph field order. Write your 5-paragraph field order for your business. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And then when you're going to share it with somebody else, you got to go to a bank or an investor. Then just translate it to their language, but use what you know. 5-paragraph field order, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean,
Yeah.
goddamn. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the military thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that right there, I think is huge. We know how to do it. We being veterans, you just have to learn. You just have to learn the language and the culture and adjust it. Just like if you were in Taiwan, Japan, Germany, Sweden, you name the country, right? You just gotta learn the language. You gotta learn the culture.
Well, and it forces us to be on the game more, right? I mean, if we know that we're in the civilian world and we know that people aren't like us, then we have to be a little bit more proactive, like you're saying. We got to go out of our way and we got to ask more. We got to ask for that communication to close the loop and say, where are you at on this? What's the hang up? Where can I help you? And then even sometimes where can I help you should just be like, let's go do this together, because me asking you where can I help you is not necessarily you're going to give me an answer. So I'm just going to help you. And so, but that's harder because we're not used to that. So we got to retrain for that new routine of helping these people.
Yeah. But you know it. You know how to do it. I
Yep.
mean, for some reason, we have this because I did it. I'll fess up that I did it when I retired. I said in my mind, my mental thought was, "Thank you very much, United States Army. I'm out. Flush all that. Don't need that shit no more." That's a dumbass thing to think. Really was. Because, like I said, now I mean, now I understand it so well, and I use the MDMP. I teach the MDMP to guys. I, one of my favorite things to do, my favorite guys to work with is retiring sergeants major, excuse me, is retiring sergeants major because they've been doing some of those guys 25, 30 years, been doing the same stuff. Some of them ain't been in the same unit that long, right? And to help them understand that they're about to write the most difficult plan they've ever written in their entire life, their entire military career, to write a plan for your next, not even the rest of your life, just your next 5 years, is harder to do than a plan to take some platoon, some company, and send them into a extremely dangerous situation where men will die. That's easier to do than to write a plan for yourself for what you're going to do the next 5 years. Try it sometime. Try writing your own 5-paragraph field order. Woo.
Well, it can be hard, but the fundamentals are there. We just have to realize we got to retweak them and tailor them to just a new situation. The battlefield's changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a physical spirit. It's not a physical war anymore. It's a spiritual war. And so it looks different, but at the same time, the fundamentals we learned in the military are the same fundamentals. We just
Yep.
have to adapt and overcome, figure out how to plug them in.
There you go, man. You nailed it.
Well, Otis, like we always say here, Rangers lead the way.
Oh, Rangers lead the way.